Hi everyone, welcome to Paranormal Among Us. On today's show, we're going to travel across the pond to chat with David Oliver, who is a Reiki healer, a medium, and a tarot card reader. We'll hear from David in just a few seconds. But before I bring him on, I want to remind you that on May 18th, come on out and join me at Ashmore Estates in Ashmore, Illinois for a ghost hunt. The event is being put on by After Dark Paranormal and the Blondes and the Booze. It'll run from 11:30 on the 18th and end around 2 a.m. on the 19th, and it's only $85 to get in, and that includes the guest speakers and a pizza dinner and the ghost hunt. So come on out and have some fun. Also, please make sure that you are subscribed to this channel because I have some great guests coming up in the next few weeks, and I don't want you to miss that. All right, right now, let's welcome our guest to the show, David Oliver. David, thank you very much for joining us today.
And thank you for having me. This is really exciting.
Yeah, awesome. You are a healer, a medium, and a tarot card reader.
Yeah, that's correct.
I haven't had a tarot card reader on here, and that's pretty cool.
Well, it's quite interesting because with the work that I've done, through developing my mediumship, the teacher that I had initially said that when it comes to doing readings, you don't really necessarily need any extra tools to do the work that you do, because if you have the psychic and intuitive abilities, then you can just do what you do. But when it comes to presenting those skills to people, tarot cards, oracle cards, and things like that tend to be more favored by people because it gives them a physical attachment to something that they can actually hold and see, and people tend to have more faith in the things that they can actually physically see in front of them. And because you have that connection, it helps establish a rapport with the person. It also helps the reading go better as well, because you create a back and forth and a flow and a connection with them, which helps you do a better reading as well sometimes, because you have more of their attention being on receiving the information that you're giving them, rather than sometimes being kind of a bit cynical about what you got to say, because you can go to anyone and tell them anything and they tend to think, well, how would you know this? But if you have something that represents it that they can find more easy to understand, then they're more accepting of it and believe in it more as well. So, I mean, when I started doing psychic fairs, I would sit there. I'd sometimes have a bowl of crystals that I would use for, I don't know if you've heard of psychometry, where basically a person will hold, they're like, can I give you an object that's on their person quite regularly, so it's got their energy within it, maybe a piece of jewelry or something like that. But if they haven't got that, then you can give them something like a crystal. They'll hold it for a bit. That energy will be absorbed into the crystal, and then I'll take it from them and hold it, and through that I'll be able to pick up on whatever it is that they have put into it. But I would be doing that, and I'd have maybe 2 or 3 people during the evening where I noticed the people that were doing the tarot card readings had person after person coming to them. And I realized that, I was just as good as those people, but because I didn't have something that people could window shop and see quite easily what it was, they weren't too enthusiastic about approaching me, where they could see a tarot reader and they know what it is. So therefore, they're more kind of instantly attracted to using that person instead. So therefore, I've taken that on, and that has been more successful when I've been giving readings, because it's clear what I do.
What goes into becoming a tarot card reader? I mean, it seems like it's a lot more than just, hey, I'm gonna start a new hobby and be a tarot card reader.
Well, yeah, there is. The first time I had a reading myself, the person explained to me that you don't necessarily have to have anything what would be considered supernatural about you. You can have those cards, and through what's already been established as the meanings of those cards and what they represent, you can give a reading with that makes sense to the person and gives them information that they want. But because I did it the other way, I learned how to develop my psychic abilities, firstly through practicing Reiki and then going on to do meditation and further things from that. I Like I said, I have the ability to give the people that intuitive knowledge anyway, but the cards link with that and also give a message as well, which again, like I said, they can see it and they can comprehend it more easily, and they are more accepting that that is the truth that they're being told. So you can get a set of cards, you can learn what each of the cards means. There's in the standard Rider Waite tarot cards, which are the ones you and other people may have seen, where you have the cups, the swords, the pentacles, and the wands or staffs, which represent different elements of the message. And you can learn those, you can read about them. You've got the preset ideas of what they mean and how they link to things, and you can go with that, and with that knowledge you can give a person a reading with them. And I tend to do that, but through once I've done the spreads, I already kind of can see where it's going and what it means. But I also have to remember that because I can doesn't mean other people can. So I then have to use the methodology of the logic that comes with the cards and go through it step by step to explain the message and grow the picture that's forming.
Do you get many clients that, after you give them a reading, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's spot on," or that's yeah.
Yeah, you get a mixture. Sometimes you get people that can see what you're saying and understand it quite quickly, but also you get a thing which has been described as psychic amnesia, where you can tell a person lots of information and they just don't seem to be able to fully get their head around it. And it's not because you aren't good at what you're doing, it's simply because they don't quite know how to absorb it. But then maybe a day to a week later, sometimes you'll get a message from someone going, I now understand what you were saying, and yes, you were right in what you conveyed to me. It just took them time to really see the picture and be able to agree with it and understand it.
Right. That's do you, I mean, do you do like in-person tarot card readings, or can you do them over the internet, over the phone? Well, obviously not the phone, but
Well, no, you can do them over the phone.
okay.
I find it generally sometimes easier to do them face to face, because you can, same with the psychometry, you can give the person the cards to hold and shuffle and they can put their energy into it, so there's more of a stronger connection with the person and then with the cards. And then when you're sat in front of them, you can do that whatever layout that is seems appropriate at the time. There's different ones for different kinds of messages that people want, and it goes quite well. But then there's been times where I've just done like a general reading for the world at a certain time, where I will just pick the cards and then I will give whatever information comes through with them. And people have also been able to agree with those and been understanding of them and felt that they were correct in what they were what was being said, basically. I was just going to find a review of a reading that I did, so I can kind of give you an example of the depth that the things that I've done have.
Sure.
Let me just find it.
And while you're looking for that,
Yeah,
have you ever had an aha moment where, yeah, or actually when you first started doing this, you're helping people and everything like that, and you had sense of pride or something that goes along with it, I'm sure.
well, yeah. I mean, the first time I actually experienced anything that I would say was a very much poignant moment in my life was when I discovered Reiki. I found a shop in a town called Worcester, where I used to live, and I hadn't seen a shop like it. I'd seen kind of hippie shops before, but they're normally quite dark and dingy and generally kind of old, where this was a lot more kind of cleaner and more attractive, basically. And I was intrigued by the shop, so I found myself kind of just wandering in there, and I was told that they had a person practicing Reiki there, and I was asked if I wanted to try it. And I, at the time, um, was in a, I suppose the best way I can describe it is a bubble. Basically, I'd had a bereavement quite recently before that, and I didn't feel very connected to anything. Um, and the lady asked me if I wanted to try the Reiki. I didn't even really think about it. I just paid her the £20 to have the treatment. Went into the room. The gentleman, gentleman called Richard, introduced himself and just told me to lie down and shut my eyes and relax, which I did. And I felt him. The way I can describe it is like he's trying, like, um, collecting leaves off a pond. He was just kind of clearing up all the stuff off the surface and just got rid of it. And then after he'd finished the session, I walked out. I went and stood outside the shop, and for the first time in a long time, I felt fully present in the moment. I felt my mind being present where I was. I felt my feet on the ground, the sun on my skin. I just felt very much relaxed and alert, and not overwhelmed by all the things that I'd previously experienced. And it was such a substantial difference that I had no doubt that something significant had happened. And it wasn't like I obviously wanted to feel better, but I wasn't looking for what I experienced. It just happened to me.
Right.
And I was able to feel the difference. And it made me realize that there's a lot more kind of color in the world than what I saw. So I went back to the shop about a week later, I guess, and I was told that there was a lady close by that was teaching Reiki, and I was given her contact details, and I made contact with her, and I basically got hold of her, found out when her next course was, and I put myself onto it. And then I went and did what's called an attunement, which is the process that enables you to be more connected to Reiki energy and to use it in a direct way as a healer. And the first day we went through the history of it and the logic of how it works and things, and then we did the actual attunement process. Then we went home to rest and came back in the next day, and then we practiced on each other to see what had worked and what hadn't. And I was paired up with a lady that I hadn't really spoke to during the course, and there's a process where do you understand the seven chakra system? Have you heard of that? Where you've
I
got
have not. I've not heard of that. No.
okay, well you okay. There's there's a lot of different chakras depending on different kind of cultural perspectives, but in Reiki and in the Western world, there's belief that there is 7 specific points. You've got the root chakra, which is between your legs, which is your connection to the earth, which is normally the colors of the rainbow, so that's seen as red. Then
Okay.
you've got what's called the sacral chakra, which is orange, and that's located in the pit of your stomach. And that's linked to your creativity, your sexuality, your desires, your artistic creativity, your expression, and the kind of cross between the more ethereal and the practical way of doing things. Then you've got your solar plexus, which is seen as yellow, which is your drive and determination, your ambition to do well in work and in achieving things, and your movement forwards to make steps to progress. Then you've got your heart, which is in your chest, which is normally seen as green, and obviously that relates to the things related to the heart, so love and emotions, caring, connection with other people, and the environment around you. You've got your throat, which is seen as blue, which is obviously about communication, talking your truth, expressing yourself and your ideas. You've got your what's called your third eye, which is linked to the pineal gland, which is just between your eyes, and that's seen as an indigo color, and that is seen as the eye that sees in a spiritual way. So your connection to the spiritual realms to psychic abilities and understanding of the kind of finer energies of the world. And then you got your crown chakra, which is seen as violet colored, and that is your connection to what you call the higher realms, the spirit world, heaven, if you want to call it that, the universe, however you want to perceive it. So normally with Reiki, there is a formulaic way where you start at the crown chakra. So you put your hands on the top of the person's head, then you put them over their ears, so it's the energy between in their brain, then over their forehead, so over their third eye, then to the throat, then to the solar plexus, the sacral chakra, the root chakra, and then you finish by holding the person's feet. And it's like giving a person a massage, but without actually touching them. It releases all of the stuck anxiety and stress that's in their physical and their energy body. And then once you touch their feet, then you allow that loose energy to drain from them through you into the ground and be taken away from them, basically.
Wow.
And my point is, when I was working on this lady, I started trying to do that formulaic way of doing things, but my hands were literally getting drawn, almost pulled towards her shoulders. And they
Okay.
did, and I tried to move them back and carried on, and then they got drawn down again, and it was obvious that that's where they wanted to go. So I let it happen. I held my hand, I'd say, about that far from her body, and I tried to physically touch her, but I couldn't. There was so much energy being drawn from my hand to her body that the air was actually thick and
Really?
dense, to the point where it's like if you get a balloon, it's only so if I can squash it before. Yeah, it
Right.
was crazy, but I squashed it as far as I could, and it felt solid.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I couldn't believe it, but I was feeling it. The way I can describe it is, if you ever had two magnets with the same pole and you try
Yeah.
and push them together,
Yeah.
and there's like, yeah, and there's that sponginess. Eventually, it becomes impossible. That's what the sensation was. It was that exact same thing.
Really?
And I held my hand in position, tried to go further, and yeah, I couldn't go any further. So I relaxed, and as soon as I relaxed and stopped trying to tense my hand to push, the bounce of the energy, literally, my hand sprung up into the air. And I did it
Wow.
again just to make sure, and it did it again, and I just burst out laughing. I literally couldn't believe that this was happening.
Yeah.
But it was it was ultimate proof that something had changed in me, and that I was now working with this energy. I mean, I every time I talk about it now, the thing I like with Reiki is just talking about it or focusing on it. You start to feel the attraction, and you feel the energy moving because you are consciously paying attention to it, basically. But yeah, that was huge for me, and I've
Yeah.
studied it since, and it is electromagnetic energy. What you call your aura is an electromagnetic field, and every living thing, animals, humans, plants, all have it.
Yeah.
And basically, it is the generation of the your life energy. Basically, Reiki translates to basically life force spirit. So it is, in my opinion, the energy that drives life. It is as an energy itself. I see it as just a raw source of the energy that sparks ideas and creativity and motion and life. Basically, it's that the power behind it. And um, the way I kind of think about it is everything that's been invented, from a fork to a wheel, that knowledge had to come from somewhere for someone to think of it as a concept that was worthwhile pursuing and developing.
Right.
But there has to have been a source of that energy and that idea in the first place. And people explain that as all thoughts are like that. All thoughts that come to you aren't being generated by you. They are things that are flowing through you. They're ideas, your opinions. Because if you're not necessarily practicing linking to Reiki or any kind of spiritual energy, we all have the ability to do it. Our instincts, with your gut feeling, for example, you get a physical sensation in your gut, don't you, if you're excited or nervous, and that
Right.
is that energy conveying itself in a way for you to tangibly interact with and form a basis of deciding to do something or not do something with, or determining how you feel about it. So yeah, you don't have to necessarily have invested in practicing it, but everybody has this intuition and this knowledge. And I think that it was very much prevalent before the invention of things related to scientific discoveries. And
Right.
we've kind of now we trust science, we trust medical advice, we trust things we can see and feel because we've just been um, channels through these filtering these things and believing them because there's been enough
Right.
evidence of them behind stuff to say yes, that is right. And I'm not saying that I disbelieve many scientific things, but I do think that a lot of things like understanding Reiki or understanding psychic work
Hmm.
have kind of been dismissed because there's no very little proof that people see as evidence that it's real.
Right.
But
Right.
there is a growth in the study of things. I don't know how it works in the American health system, but over here the NHS use acupuncture as a therapy. They also use Reiki as a therapy as well.
Hmm.
So, there is belief that it's a thing that is worthwhile using, and it is used.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if you've experienced much of the growth in spiritual activities, but there's a lot of people are going through awakenings, if you like, where they're realizing there's more to life than they had before, and
Yeah.
now people are growing and talking to each other and studying these different ways of doing things and having these experiences to the point where a large amount of people are having the same experience and going, well, there's got to be something in it for so many people to go through the same thing.
Right. And I've been doing this show for not quite a year now, and I believed in the spiritual realm, and I believed in all that life after death and everything.
Mhm.
But it seems that the more I go on with this show, the more I'm experiencing more things. Like, okay, now was that someone communicating with me, or is my mind just going crazy?
Mhm.
Stuff like that. So yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, exactly.
So
Go ahead.
I was going to ask, how are these things coming to you? Are you Is it like you're hearing things, or are you just getting the
I'm
knowledge in
just
your head?
getting things. I
Okay.
mean, for years, I'm not handy at all. I can change a light bulb. I can fix minor things, but when it comes to something a little bit more advanced, I have a hard time doing it. And
Mhm.
I try and start it, but then I get stuck. But my grandpa was very handy. Unfortunately, that gene did not pass down to me. Um, but if I'm stuck or something, even with anything else, I'm only like, okay, grandpa, what would you do? Mom, what would you do? And then, you know, a few minutes later, I'm like, oh, try it this way, and it works.
Mhm.
And it's strange. I'm assuming that's kind of spiritual. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like that's how s- thought that having had these experiences with the Reiki and everything since, that's really amplified my experiences within these realms. But
Hmm.
ever since I was a kid, um, I would it's called clear cognizance. It's clear knowing. It's just you don't know why, but you have
Hmm.
this information appear in your head, and you just know that you are right in what you're thinking. You don't doubt it. You trust in it.
Right.
Um, and that sounds like what you're getting, where you don't know something, but suddenly you get the knowledge, and there's no
Hmm.
logic. It's not like you read it. It's not like you've learned it. You've just given it, and you're like, okay, I get that now, and I can do it, and it works.
Yeah.
Um, but I find that I don't know about you, but another reason I've very much indulged in this way of doing things in life has been through the experiences I've had, and wanting to help other people because of the experiences I've got, and being able to build rapport with other people because I do understand what it's like to be in those situations. But
Hmm.
ever since I was
Very cool.
little, I'd always have people, complete strangers, would just come up and open up to me. I could be sat in, there's in the town of Worcester where I used to live. I used to, before we had mobile phones and things, I'd ring
Hmm.
someone, arrange a time and a place to meet them. I'd wait for them and meet them, and then we'd go and do whatever we were going to do. But during that time, when I was waiting, very often I'd have a person come up to me and sit up next to me and not even really tell me their name. They would just unload on me and basically tell
Hmm.
me about something that was going on in their life or some problem they were having. And when I was younger, I didn't really have much to draw on because I didn't really have much experience. But then as time went on, I realized that the experience I've got have helped other people. And I thought, well, if that's the way that my
Hmm.
life's going to be and that's the skill set that I have, then I'm going to kind of grow that. And that's what I've done. And that's
Right.
where, alongside with the spiritual stuff and the Reiki, I also studied what's called neuro linguistic programming. I don't know if
Okay.
you've heard of that. It's called
Uh-uh.
NLP, and it's a more practical method to help people basically change the way they perceive situations that have caused anxiety or stress or any kind of um, difficulties in their lives that have been overwhelming for them.
Right.
And you use different techniques depending on their skill set to help them change the way that they perceive and approach that situation so they are able to be aware of it but not feel overwhelmed by it so much as well. So I've tried to turn kind of the skills into practical things as well that can help people. And
Hmm.
I'm also studying a counselling skills course as well, so I can then apply that to it. But basically, my general logic has been to improve myself and help myself get over the things that I've had issues with, but also use those skills to help other people. So I don't think anything that I've been through in my life has been by accident. I seriously believe that I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing, and I've been
Hmm.
given these experiences. Sometimes they were really traumatic, but they've given me
Hmm.
knowledge I wouldn't have had otherwise and helped me be able to have this empathy and this understanding to work with people, basically.
Right. And it's got to make you feel good when you're helping somebody and they come to you later on, however many days, years, weeks, whatever, later on and say, you know what, David, though, whatever we did worked out and I feel so much better now and things are working out for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that's the thing that I it's difficult sometimes in the way the world is at the moment to have a positive perspective on things because there's so many things that are very difficult.
Exactly.
But I've learned that I want to help everybody in the world to be as happy as possible because we should be. A lot of the problems we have are self-perpetuating and
Yeah.
self-created circumstances that could have been avoided. But people are people. But basically, I know that I can't do that, so I just try and find satisfaction in helping with the things that are within reason in my immediate reach and
Right.
my immediate capabilities because if you think about everything all the time you just end up sat in the corner not doing anything because there's so much stuff to try and deal with. But I've realised that I can't do that. So in my everyday work, I work as a teaching assistant for children with special educational needs. So
Oh,
that's my day to day reality, and I find satisfaction in being present in that moment and just doing
right.
what's needed for them to get through their day and learn what they need to learn. Um, and I don't focus on anything beyond that. So,
Right.
there's sometimes I will get intuitive things that will come to me, but it's not really appropriate for the time because that's not my job there. But
Right. Right.
yeah, and then
And
outside of that, it expands.
and that's an awesome job too. We need more people in the world like that.
Mm.
So let's talk a little bit about your mediumship. Have you always kind of known that you were a medium or had the ability to do that?
Well, like I said, I had this understanding of the claircognizance. I didn't know what it was until I joined a
Hmm.
spiritual development group and it was explained to me of the different kinds, and then it just kind of clicked in my head. I thought, okay, well, that's that. But the most significant overall situations I've experienced was I when I was about 6 or 7 years old, I would have very memorable recurring dreams quite regularly. And at the time, I didn't really think much about it because I didn't
Hmm.
really have the capacity because I was a child. But I went to a past life hypnotherapist with an old friend of mine quite a while ago just to try it. They went and I went along with them to just kind of see
Hmm.
what was going on, and I tried it myself.
Hmm.
And in the session, even though I was kind of being hypnotized and in that situation, I was also observing consciously what was going on. And
Hmm.
the situation that I visited it as the past life situation, I recognized as one of the scenarios that I dreamt about. It was the same environment, it was the same atmosphere, same kind of vibe. And I was like, okay. So I went through the process, saw the life that I'd lived, saw and like in addition to the dream, because in the dream I was on like a wooden structure by a waterfall, and I'd
Mm-hmm.
feel it collapsing from under me and feel the falling sensation, and that would be
Right.
it for the dream. But then in the meditation, the hypnotherapy session, I saw my life before that, and basically I was about the same age as I was when I was having the dreams, and I lived in, I believe it was somewhere like South America. We had the very kind of ebony hair and very
Mm-hmm.
kind of basic village in a clearing in a jungle, and I was told by my parents not to go beyond a certain limit of where I wanted to go, and I ignored them, and I did go that way, and then I saw myself go into the structure, and I saw my end, and I was like, well, the lesson there is to listen to your parents and do what you're meant to do, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
um, but yeah, that blew my mind. And then when I came out of it, I was like, okay, that in
Uh-huh.
my mind that makes sense. And then I visited a couple of other therapists that did hypnotherapy, and went through a couple of other lifetimes, and two other situations have come up, which are places I remember dreaming about in these dreams. And I saw one where I was in 1800s London, and I was living on the streets, um, and I was playing card games to make money, where people have to guess where the queen is or whatever.
Right.
And I saw myself kind of from like a third person perspective, and in the grey and the gloom of London, I saw my hands glowing with like a golden energy color.
Uh-huh.
And I realized that I believe that my life throughout many of my lifetimes, I've had these abilities. I've been psychic. I've been able to work with energy, and during that time I was just using my psychic knowledge to kind of not make it too obvious, but to guarantee that every few times I would actually win, to make sure that I had some money to eat. I used it to survive, basically.
Right.
And I seriously believe that, again, in this lifetime that I'm in, I've had these experiences with the things that I've lost and the things that I've gained, and meeting the people to help me learn about these abilities again. But I believe it's just been a reminder more of a learning from the start. Obviously, I can only be aware of it in this lifetime as me,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how it works. But I seriously believe that my soul has been through many situations where I've had the same abilities and same capabilities, and every time I have a life, I'm destined to, in one way or another, work in this way, basically. Um, and with regards to the mediumship side of things, I didn't know that I could do it. I didn't even know it was a
Right.
real thing, to be honest. And I've seen people doing magic and stuff, and I never really understood it, but I didn't really have a belief either way if people could be
Mm-hmm.
psychic or not. But I joined a group purely to do meditation to begin with, because group meditation I find is a lot more powerful, because you've just got more energy in the room. And
Right.
the gentleman teaching me, and the group that I was in, explained to us that with the chakras, you can expand your energy, especially with the crown chakra, because that's your connection to the ethereal and the spiritual world. And it was explained to us that because ghosts, spirits, whatever you want to call them, they have a physical presence. I don't know if you've
Mm-hmm.
ever experienced what you think is a ghost, where you feel that cold feeling, that's more
Yeah.
extreme than
I
anything
have
else.
not, but yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, but basically they have a physical um, mass, but it's very fine because they are just energy.
Right.
And basically, for when you're doing mediumship, the way it's explained to me is, as a person on this planet, we can only see what we're limited to being able to see, what's in front of us and around us, and we can only think in linear time, and
Mm-hmm.
know what's going to happen kind of when it's happening. We can think that we know something's going to happen in the future, but there's no definite
Right.
um, truth that that's going to happen. But basically, when people are in spirit, they aren't limited to the limitations that we're under, so they're able to see a future event occurring, or an environment around us that we're not aware of, that they can see something happening that is going to be beneficial for us to know. So when people go to mediums and they want to hear from their grandma because they miss them, or whoever it is,
Mm-hmm.
fair enough, that. But it's not like that. They don't just suddenly appear and be like, "Oh, hi, how's it going?" Because
Right.
to get to the medium to pass on the information through them, or to the person that they're going to, who wants to link with them, they have to get through our environment, and to get through our physical world with all the energy that's in it, it's like us trying to swim through sand. There's resistance, it takes energy
Right.
because it's difficult for them. So as a medium, if you can expand your energy closer towards where they are, if you can kind of try and meet them in the middle, then the message you're going to get will be stronger and more powerful because they haven't used up their energy trying to get to you.
Right.
So
I get
they're
it.
not exhausted, and it works more effectively that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was explained to us. So we learned how to protect ourselves at first. When people go, be worried about the devil or whatever, coming into you. There are some weird entities out there, but nothing that I've really experienced is
Yeah.
as harmful as people think there is. But basically, you protect yourself anyway. It's like putting a seatbelt on before you get in the car. You're not definitely going to crash, but it's better to be prepared for it in case you do. And basically, we do that. Then you expand your aura, envision it growing, and then your
Hmm.
energy goes closer to wherever the source of the information is coming from,
Hmm.
and where the spirit is. And first of all, we were told, don't overthink it, don't try too hard, because the harder you try, the more you kind of get in your own way, and it makes it more difficult. So you have to
Right.
try, but be relaxed with it. And basically, at first, I would get little glimpses. I'd get like the first memory I have of really connecting with anything is I saw a gold brooch, and in the blackness of my eye shot, I saw this brooch shining out, and that was something that I wasn't making up. That was something I was sure was being given to me. And then over the
Hmm.
months, as we practice more and more, it develops more and more. So you start to get more of a picture of the person. You'd be able to see who they were, how they were connected to the person you're giving the reading to, etc.
Hmm.
And then this one day, there was a girl that I don't think I'd done a reading for her before, and I was partnered with her to practice on her.
Right.
And when I made that connection, I saw her uncle, and he was canoeing down the Amazon in the jungle.
Right.
And I saw his death. I saw how he looked. I saw his clothes, his face, everything about him. And I just reeled it off to this girl, like I was seeing it like it's right in front of me.
Right.
And she was just like, gobsmacked. She's like, I can't believe you had that much information because that was so detailed. And she was like,
Right.
you're spot on everything and how he died and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, that obviously means I can do this now. So that's
Yeah.
great. I've learned and I've achieved my goal. And then after that, after a while, the first time we went out to actually do any public work,
Uh-huh.
we were given an opportunity to work in a small town hall with another group of people who were local to that town hall. They were in the same situation as they were beginners and they were developing their abilities. And we did a evening of mediumship just before Christmas. And we were all sat on the stage and we were asked, who wants to go first? And I was literally picked up. Like I was stood and then I just looked and I was like, oh, it'll be me then. And it was like spirit had literally just
Lifted you
pushed
up.
me and said, oh, go on, go and do it. And I was like, okay. And I was like, right, okay. So I
Excuse me.
kind of collected my thoughts and I was asking, if there's obviously a need for me to be here. So what is it you want to give me?
Uh-huh.
And all I got was this feeling of like I was in the sunbed, this heat on my back, like extreme warmth, but no words, there was no images, it was just this warmth of energy. And I was like, that's great, but I can't do anything with it. So I asked, is there anybody else there? And then when I did that, I got a picture of a gentleman. I saw him in how he was, how he died. And as I was looking at the crowd, this one person just seemed to shine a bit brighter than everybody else. So I knew that that's who I was giving the reading for. So I
Right.
told her, I explained who it was. I told him the experiences I'd had, and she just nodded along, was able to kind of convey that she understood what I was trying to tell her. So I
Oh,
did
that's
that,
cool.
and yeah, it was great. So I was happy with that, and I sat back down,
Uh-huh.
and then all the other people were given their opportunity to do their readings and they carried on with that. And then once the whole group had finished, the two teachers said, we're going to do our work now, but if anybody gets anything that they want to say, then don't feel afraid to say it, because if a spirit's come to you to tell you something, they've made that effort to get to you, so you need to convey it because there's a reason that they're taking
Right.
advantage of the fact that you're there with these people. So do it. So I put my hands up and I said, "Well, I'm not quite sure if there's anything specific to say, but I could see at the back of the room, like the outlines of bodies, like the aura. And the way I see an aura is like when you're looking through a glass of water, it's clear, but you can see there's a slight difference to it. Yeah."
Right. Right. Right.
And I just saw at the back this row of these outlines of heads and shoulders of people. And the teacher was like, "Well, ask one of them to come forward if you want them to." So I did. I allowed. I said, "If there's any spirit wants to come and connect with me, then do so." And I saw this one separate from the group and walk down the corridor space between the two rows of seats.
Uh-huh.
And they got about 5 meters away from me, and I saw this tiny little old lady. She looked like Yoda. She was that short. She had a dressing gown rolled up because none of her clothes would fit her because she was that small.
Uh-huh.
And I saw her at Christmas. I saw her with the grandkids, and she was like their favorite grandma because they were as tall as she was. So they could, you know, they were on eye level with her. I saw the whole situation around them, and then I saw the person I had to give the message to, and I told them, and they started crying, and I was like, oh no. And they were like, it's okay, but it was obviously
Right.
a shock for them. But again, it showed that I was right in what I was saying. Um, so yeah, I kind of stole the show with that, and then we finished off. And when like everyone was stopping and talking between themselves and having a drink, the lady of the group that were being taught by her came up
Hmm.
to me and she said, "The lady that you gave that first reading for, you need to go and speak to her basically because she knew there was something that I needed to discover." She didn't want to tell me outright, but wanted me to experience it. So I
Right.
went up to the lady who I gave that first reading for, and I said, "I've been told I need to come and speak to you." And she said, "Yeah, the person that you gave me the message for was a person that I used to be a carer for."
Okay.
And I was like, "Okay." And then I said, "Well, strangely enough, before I got that, I had this sensation of this warmth, but there was no words, there was no, information conveyed apart from that." And she looked at me and she started to cry. And I was like, "Oh, what have I done?" And explained to me that that person was the person I'd gave her the reading for in detail. The person I'd felt the energy of was his son, and his son was he had Down syndrome and he was non-verbal, so he couldn't speak.
Oh.
But that energy, that feeling, was his energy trying to
Uh-huh.
connect with me. That was his warmth and his vibe trying to tell me that he was there. But obviously, I couldn't get any words because he wasn't able
'Cause he
to.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, so that just blew my mind, and I was like, well, to again, I love doing this work, and I love the fact that it's real to me. But that experience really showed me that I was not making any of that up. I could not have even imagined that
No.
ever, and to be
No.
able to do that was just like, well, that to me shows me that it is a real thing and that it is a real experience. I'm not saying that everybody's cynical, but I know a lot of people still are a bit funny about it because it's so bizarre. But all the
Yeah.
experience I've had with the Reiki, with the mediumship, they've all been experiences that I've enjoyed having, but I've never created for myself, if you know what I mean. I didn't manifest them and say, I have to believe this. It's come to me, I've
Right.
experienced it, and then I've gone, well, that makes sense to me, and therefore I believe it's part of real life,
Exactly.
you
And getting back to what people believe happens on the medium, there's no way that you could make that up and be that accurate. I
know?
mean, the grandmother and the kids all being her favorite, being the favorite grandmother and everything because they're the same level and everything, and the Down syndrome. And I've heard other things from mediums too. I mean, there's no way that you can make that up. I mean, you don't meet these people beforehand and say, "Hey, give me something to make me look
Yeah,
good about that." No, you don't do
yeah,
that.
yeah. Um, it's weird because you do get some people that do that. There's a certain medium who has someone doing research literally live while she's doing the readings and then feeding her information and
Really?
giving it and yeah, and she's massive because she's accurate, but there's
Well,
a bit
yeah,
of but it's a shame because it just kind of makes it difficult for the legitimate people to be believed.
hmm
But yeah, I never do any of this to unless you're really got something wrong with your head, I don't think you're going to do this in a manipulative way.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I never, like I said, before I experienced it, I didn't even know it's possible. But to be able to do these things and convey these messages and to have these experiences, it's just made my life very interesting. And I just very much, I'm glad that we're in the time where we are now, where people like yourselves are willing to have people like me and others on to discuss it,
Hmm.
and that we're able to discuss it relatively openly without fear of persecution, or you might get people watching this, a few trolls going, oh no, whatever, this, that, and the other. But then you
Yeah.
also get a lot of people that go, yeah, I totally on board with that. And the more, especially having the internet, the more that
Exactly.
this information is spread and the more people see it, there may be people that are having some experiences like yourselves that are worried about it, because when you do have that knowledge into your head, unless you've got
Hmm.
certainty that it's because of this, or you've got someone to help guide you, you can feel like you're going crazy. And it's a very disturbing sensation and
Right.
situation to be in. But once you have it explained to you, but then that also comes along with a lot of um, need, I think, for good guidance and being able to discern between what is
Hmm.
your thoughts and what are other thoughts, so you don't feel like you're going beyond sane, because it can be a lot to deal with. And especially with the healing, like I said, there'll be times I can see somebody and I can see what they need,
Yeah.
but it's not right for me to offer it, because
Exactly.
it's just not. I mean, there was a time I was in a restaurant and I saw a gentleman who sat, and it was clear that to me that he used to go with his partner, but she'd passed away, because I could see her around him, and I sat there trying to just ignore it, but I couldn't. It got to the point where he was going to walk out the door of the restaurant, and I was like, screw it, I've got to say something. So I went up to him and I said, sorry to disturb you, but I just
No.
wanted you to know that your wife is still around you. And he looked at me and I could tell he knew what I was saying, but his brain almost couldn't deal with it. And he went, oh no, I've just got to go and do this, that, and the other, which was nothing related to what I said, but that was his
Yeah.
reaction to it. And even though it was a bit out of the ordinary, and potentially a bit maybe upsetting for him to be reminded of it,
Hmm.
once I'd done that and passed the message on, I felt the energy change, that tension lifted, and it was allowed to flow. So I was kind of happy I'd done the right thing in the circumstances, but it can be difficult because you don't want to upset people and
No.
throw things at them they don't believe in. But sometimes if it's the right thing to do, it's better to do it rather than not, and then have that kind of hanging
Yeah.
over you, if you like.
Now, is that something that you do often? That do you shut the spirits off from getting to you, or do you just
Um,
it just happens like the guy in the restaurant?
no, it just tends to happen. I don't always go out intently looking for it,
Uh-huh.
because when you're working as a medium and also with the Reiki healing, there is that kind of process I explained about
Hmm.
consciously opening your chakras to be more sensitive to the energy around you. But even if you're not necessarily trying to do that, you're never completely disconnected from it anyway, I don't think.
Right.
So sometimes you'll get stuff come through, and you just be like, okay. And then sometimes it's just useful to have that knowledge. Sometimes it's not, but you're never going to completely close it down.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes I will consciously do the protection and the opening up and go out to places to
Hmm.
see what I pick up. Or if I'm going to, I've been to a few places where you do what ghost hunting, where there's a place that's known to be haunted and you actively try and seek out spirits. And I do that myself there to try and connect with them more as well.
That would be fun.
Yeah, it
That
is.
would be interesting. Yeah. Well, I find this all incredibly interesting, and you said that earlier. You said something about you know people believing what they want, and this is a safe place, and I found a lot of other shows that I follow. Um, they're the same way. I mean, we do this to give out information.
Mhm.
Certainly, we don't judge anything, whether the listener, the viewer wants to believe it or not. That's completely up to them. But there's no belittling people. That a lot of the shows that they won't stand for it, and they'll kick people out before they get to that stuff. So I
Fair
yeah.
enough. It's
Yeah.
interesting how there is that kind of diversity, mostly prevalent in the USA, because there's just a lot of people with a lot of different perspectives, and
Hmm.
how you can have some people in certain areas where God is God and that is it, and they won't hear anything else about it, and anything else you say is wrong.
Yeah.
And then you have the other people that are completely the other way, that have very different experiences through spiritual means, or
Hmm.
through hallucinogenics, or just whatever method they have to expand their minds and believe in things. But I think that it's generally, especially with religion, the way that I look at it is, if people want to go to church and have that way of worshipping and living, then
Hmm.
that's fine. I have my beliefs and I've had my experiences, and to me they're true, and that therefore I
Hmm.
see that as the way that my life is. But also the way I look at it is, I've had meditations where I've experienced the energy of the Holy Spirit, of Jesus. I believe I've actually experienced that, and it's amazing. Um,
Hmm.
and I also believe that if you want to go with the logic that God created the earth and everything else, then if things like myself and other people exist on this planet with these abilities to do what we do,
Hmm.
then I've made it the logic in my head, well, it must have his blessing, because otherwise it wouldn't exist.
Right.
So it's not necessarily evil, it's just different. I mean, Jesus, if you want to believe in the things he did, he was basically a holistic healer.
Right.
He was that strong in his energies. He was able to, do the things that he did.
Hmm.
And it was all natural. He didn't go out saying, "Oh, come and look at me and praise me." He was just like, "I'm able to do this. I'm able to help people out." And
Hmm.
that's what his, as a person, that's what his ethics told him to do.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, if it rings true to people, then that's fine. Like I said, I've had my experiences, and
Hmm.
again, I've never looked at anything, and kind of felt any strong connection with anything but what I've experienced, and that therefore, like I said, that's given me the
Right.
belief that that is true and that is real. But I think these days, because there's so much ability to learn about so many different things, that
Hmm.
it's great, because I've seen a lot of people who are healers that are, um they do go to religious services and have those beliefs, but they also believe and are happy to do the healing work themselves as well.
Right.
So it's not as kind of black and white, and as long as that people are satisfied and have a logical thing that they find reason in, and they find peace in believing in, then I don't think it should be an issue. The thing that we could go on for hours is the other side of things, where people are fighting each other in the name of their religion, and
Right.
that just totally kind of goes against the whole point of it in the first place, doesn't it? Really, but
Yeah.
that's what they want to
Exactly.
do. Can I read this review that I found? I was going to
Absolutely. I was going to
to.
ask you if you found that. Yeah. Go ahead and read it.
Okay, this is from a lady called Lila, who I believe still lives in New York, and um, this is what she said. I'm not one to frequently leave reviews, but the exceptional talents of David Oliver deserve nothing less. In fact, I believe not sharing my healing experience would be a disservice to anyone who may benefit from David's finely tuned therapeutic services. I myself am not without knowledge or experience in various healing modalities. I'm a licensed nurse, a certified life coach, and I facilitate recovery for those suffering with depression or anxiety. And yet, when I was experiencing a particularly challenging time, I found my own practices insufficient. I felt I needed assistance in a way I couldn't provide for myself energetically. I'd virtually met David months earlier and was thoroughly impressed with his psychic gifts. He revealed truths about myself and my family that I had not disclosed. So, naturally, when I felt I needed energetic intervention, I immediately thought to contact David, who most graciously offered me his earliest available session. During his assessment, I couldn't help but cry while describing the situation I'd found myself in and how badly I'd been feeling. David responded with care, kindness, warmth, and compassion, reassuring me he'd do his best to help me. The distance between us was irrelevant. I was in New York while David was in England. He proceeded to guide me through a meditation during which I felt immediate comfort. He then followed with a spiritual energy chakra healing. As he masterfully performed his healing an ocean away, I experienced an exponential lifting of the emotional pain I was in and a rush of serenity and hope, a dramatic improvement. Once the healing was concluded, he told me what he had encountered within my chakras, and I was amazed at his accuracy. He somehow intuited how I'd been neglecting certain areas of my life, how I love spending time on the beach with my family, my appreciation of fine arts, even my favourite flower. He concluded the session by recommending a plan of action for me to follow so I can ensure maintenance of my healing. I'm taking his advice and continuing feeling better. I'm ever so grateful to David for helping me when I couldn't help myself. He's an exceptionally gifted healer and a magnificent human being. So, high praise indeed.
That is very good. And I kept thinking, one, very good job. That's very impressive that someone leaves that kind of review for you and the work that you did. And two, I don't know why this popped in my head. 20 years ago, maybe more, this wouldn't have been possible. You helped somebody from New York. I mean, without the internet or without Zoom or whatever that you use to communicate with these people. I mean, it's incredible. It is that the world's gotten smaller, and kudos kudos to you and the work that you did. That was amazing, and that you continue to do.
Well, yeah, it's amazing for me to have these experiences because I go into the session with confidence that I can do what I do with them. But again, when I'm doing it, I'm not trying to make it happen. I'm serious, just observing myself doing the work and feeling what I'm feeling and getting this information, and then just trying to kind of take mental notes whilst I'm doing it. So when I come out of that kind of space, I'm then able to write it down to further work with it, and that's come through a lot of practice as well. But yeah, to be able to see the things like I have, like I said, and experiences those things, it blows my mind every time. I'm never egotistical about it. I'm always humbled by it and humble about it. But I just find it amazing that these things are able to be done as a human being, and I think that not everybody has to believe in it, and not everybody has to practice it. But even things like basic meditation, just shutting your mind down for a few minutes and letting yourself just not think and have to work on stuff would be very therapeutic and beneficial for a lot of people. Because
Exactly.
it's not too far out there. It's just learning to just stop feeling like you have to do something all the time. It's good to be proactive. It's good to make things happen, but sometimes it's best to just allow yourself to calm down because
Yeah.
the world is a very stressful place. There's a lot of products being pushed. There's a lot of content being made. Everyone's like, "Oh, look at me! I'm doing this, that, and the other." Like same as me
Exactly.
on this. I could have not done this and done something different, but I felt that it was worthwhile doing. But I just think things like this could be used in a more of a beneficial way.
Right. It's funny you say that it's good to just take time to just be. You know, last 2 days were my days off from work, and I've been really busy trying to cram as much stuff into these 2 days off as I can, interviews, editing, all that stuff. But it's also good and important that people just kind of just be, just lay down on the couch, on the ground, wherever, just sit there and just kind of absorb the world around you and just kind of be at one with the earth.
Yeah, take a breath and calm down.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Well, David, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day over in the UK to join us here today. It's been fascinating to me. I haven't talked to anybody about the tarot cards yet, but the mediumship stuff, I just find that incredibly fascinating. And kudos to you on that review. I appreciate you sharing that.
yeah. Thank you.
And it's very impressive. Very impressive. Good job. So,
Thank you. No, I appreciate you giving me the time. So yeah, it's great.
all right. Awesome. All right, guys, we'll be right back right after this. If you'd like to learn more about David or contact him about a reading, here's a link to his Facebook page, Spiritual Being. I appreciate Dave for taking the time over in the UK to join us today. Also, thank you for watching. Please feel free to leave a comment below as well. Also, if you have a paranormal story that you would like to share or you would like to be a guest on the show, please feel free to email me at paranormalamongus72@gmail.com. Hope everybody stays safe out there, and until next time, I will see you on the next episode of Paranormal Among Us.